A few weeks ago, my wife and I were on a bus crossing the Hannam Bridge here. We were coming from Gangnam, going north. And I happened to look out the window and I saw this. I knew it was coming. That's the Hannam Newtown project in action. A couple of years ago, I did a video there. Yeah, this is the view from the church on top of the hill. All of this stuff right below us, immediately below us, going down the slope, that's gonna be gone. And then a few months ago, I was shooting a video about the Han River bus, and as part of that, I walked across the bridge here, referring to this area, specifically where Hannam-dong is. And I happened to look over and notice that demolition had already begun. It caught me by surprise. I wasn't aware it had started. And again, I knew it was coming. It's inevitable. The project was in motion. Things were happening. I shot that video over there during the relocation stage when the residents were being moved out. It was inevitable that this was going to happen, but even so, seeing it that day as I was crossing the bridge over there in that video, seeing that it had already started, it was a shock. But then seeing this from the bus a few weeks ago was an even bigger shock. And yet, that wasn't the biggest. There was another shock yet to come. This is the Bukhanam Samburi, the North Hannam-dong intersection. This is the Hannam-daero right here, Hannam Boulevard. Hannam Bridge is down in that direction. Go up this way, you get a fork in the road that leads either to Dongdaemun or Shindangdong. And this is Itaewon-no, Itaewon Street. It takes you through North Hannam-dong and into Itaewon. I have been passing through this intersection on foot, in vehicles, for over 30 years. And on the day that I walked through on my way to Hannam Bridge to get that shot of the hill for Instagram, I passed through here and I was immediately struck by the absence of something. Right here, there used to be a ramp that went up to a pedestrian bridge that crossed the street right here. I couldn't begin to tell you how many times I have crossed that pedestrian bridge since I've been in Korea. And what's interesting about it, they had this sign on the railing there warning people not to be afraid of the bounce. It was designed with a bounce in it. You could feel it sometimes when multiple people were walking across the thing at once, it would bounce. And I've seen, people go wide-eyed who weren't expecting it. The thing about it not being here is, in my mind, it's here. It's like a phantom limb. I feel it there. I know it's there. But then I look and it's not there. It's when I saw that pedestrian bridge was gone and that this crosswalk had taken its place, that it really hit me. That hit me harder even than the demolition of all those buildings on that hill. It's such a small thing, right? It's just a pedestrian bridge. But it's such a big part of my life, and I didn't realize it until it was gone. And that made me reevaluate how I see Hannam-dong.
Sunrise doesn't last all morning. A cloudburst doesn't last all day. my love is up and has left you with no warning. It's not always gonna be this great. All things must pass. All things must pass away. Sunset doesn't last all evening. A mind can blow those clouds away. After all this, my love is up and must be leaving. It's not always gonna be this great. All things must pass. All things must pass away. All things must pass. None of life's strings can last. So I must be on my way. I face another day now. The darkness only stays at night time. In the morning it will fade away. Daylight is good at arriving at the right time. It's not always gonna be this great. All things must pass. All things must pass away. All things must pass. None of life's strings can last. So I must be on my way. Face another day now. The darkness only stays at night time. In the morning it will fade away. Daylight is good at arriving at the right time. It's not always gonna be this great. All things must pass. All things must pass away. All things must pass. All things must pass away.
In the 14 or so years that I've lived in Hannam-dong, since I've been in Korea, changes were constantly happening. A building went down and a new one took its place. A restaurant shut down and a new shop came in. It's the typical churn that you see in any neighborhood. And if I walk to any neighborhood in Seoul, if I take you with me to any neighborhood in Seoul, I can talk about how that neighborhood doesn't look like it used to, or maybe how it's even frozen in time. Some neighborhoods are. But for Hannam-dong, it was different. I mean, I knew it had changed. I knew it wasn't the same anymore. But as many of the changes were happening, I was here in the middle of it while they were happening. It's kind of like when you look in the mirror every day, you look the same. And it's only when you go back and look at an old photo that you realize how much you've aged. But now, with an entire section of Hannam-dong being demolished and this pedestrian bridge disappearing, I look around and I'm really thinking about just how different this place is from the first time I saw it. Very nearly all the buildings here on Hannam-daero between this intersection and the bridge were built after I came to Korea. The entire cityscape here, as you're going down this street, is completely different from what it was when I first arrived. I can't remember what it looked like before. I just can't. The Hannam-dong of the 90s is no longer in my head. I don't remember what it looked like. Now you go into the back streets and yeah, I can still see the shape of the Hannam-dong I knew back then. I can see the outline because a lot of those old buildings are still there, but they've been converted to other purposes, commercial purposes. First floor apartments are now restaurants and cafes and boutique shops. This site here used to be something called Hannam Tower. It was an apartment building. Actually, I guess there were two buildings here. One was a tower, one was a little lower. And it was bought, I guess, by a company or something. It became something else a few years ago. And now it's gone. And you've got the 9-1 apartments, some of the most expensive apartments in Seoul that went up a few years ago on the same property that used to be the US military apartments, Hannam Village. Right there, that's probably the oldest building on the street. And I don't know, maybe the school here too. These elevators on the pedestrian bridges, they weren't here 25 years ago. I've shown this before in a previous video. This was part of the Hannam Village compound here, the military apartments. All of this land has been parceled out, and I guess it's just waiting to be sold. But look at that. This is the first time I've seen the demolition from this angle. And again, it hits me. I know it's there. I've already seen it from down there. Now seeing this view, it just hits me even harder. Then of course you've got this apartment complex over here where Dangguk University used to be. This southeast corner of Hannam-dong here, where Yuen Village is located, is probably the one part of Hannam-dong that still feels like it used to. I mean, there's some new stuff here. This place here, Caravel, I've never seen this before. But then you've got like original Pancake Story and Banana Grill, with their Philly cheesesteaks. These are some old stalwarts by now. They've been here well over a decade. And okay, yeah, this looks different. Is this a new building? But overall, I can walk through this part of the neighborhood and still feel like it's the same as it was 15, 20 years ago and more. The first time I came into this part of Hannam-dong was probably in the second half of 1993, and it was very different in many ways. I think the biggest difference is that everything was local, independent businesses. You didn't have like Paris Baguette coming in. You didn't have Baskin Robbins. You didn't have Starbucks. There's a Starbucks up the street here now. And there really weren't any convenience stores in the area like 7-Eleven. Pretty much everything was local and independently owned. I don't know, 30 years ago, most of the franchises were Main Street things primarily. In areas like this, you just didn't see them. For a long time, this right here was a kimbap 천국, kimbap heaven. They were one of the better locations. They had excellent tuna kimbap. That used to be my first stop on my way to a hike. There's even an egg drop in Hannam-dong now. When did that open? Looks like it's been there a while, based on the condition of the signboard. My wife and I spent 10 years in Hannam-dong from the end of 2004 to late 2014. Then we moved over to Gyeongnidan for a couple of years, but we came back to Hannam-dong to another part, and we're there from 2016, late 2016 to early 2018. So many of the spaces, the shops, eateries on this street are new. This one at least has been here for quite a while. It's a naengmyeon restaurant, the cold noodles. Very well-known one, but I mean, look at this. Oh, that's part of the Thai embassy. Okay, that's a new Thai embassy building. That's the Thai embassy over there, the old one. This is newer. All of this stuff built in the last few years. This was the first place my wife and I lived in Hannam-dong. We lived here on the first floor. We were there for 4 years. Yeah, the second place we lived was right up here behind this wall, behind this grayish colored building. And this is where we opened the hot dog shop that her brother ran for a long time. Swanky jewelry place now. And something new is going in here, looks like. Okay, so I guess maybe that Yuan Village area isn't the only place that still feels like it always has. This mostly feels the same. Even this, this has moved. This thing right here, this smiley face. What is it? Saturday Mood. This used to be up here at the top of the hill. So even the changes are changing. That's where we're at. You can look at some of my exploration videos, like the recent one I did in Janggwi-dong, or the ones I've done in the past in Junggok-dong, or in a couple of neighborhoods in Eunpyeong-gu. And in those videos, you'll see that I walked through street after street of villas, one villa after another, all side by side. That's exactly what this neighborhood used to look like. Just one villa after another, and that's it. But now all the villas, most of the villas, have shops on the first floor, sometimes the second floor, and some of the villas have been completely replaced with new buildings. The first house I lived in Hannam-dong, the first house I lived in Korea, just as I was getting out of the army. I was on terminal leave, last 90 days in the army. I was basically on vacation. That's when I rented the place here. And it was right here where these villas are now. It's hard to be certain where the gate was. It was somewhere in this vicinity maybe. But it was an old, I guess there was a hanok, and it had been heavily modified so that it didn't look like a hanok anymore. It had extensions and whatnot. It was a little one-room place. Didn't even have a bathroom. The bathroom was outside. We had an outhouse. It was just a hole in some concrete. It was extremely cheap at the time. So I jumped on it as a starter home, my Korea starter home, starter rental. Yeah, I didn't have much of a kitchen. I did have a shower, but the shower was in the kitchen. The kitchen sink had a shower head attached to it. And that was right inside the front door. You came into the front door and there was a concrete floor there with a the sloping thing and the drain in the middle. That was my kitchen/shower. And then you stepped up onto a little platform to the right and there was a refrigerator. That was the only place to put the refrigerator. And then you had a sliding door into the main room. And all of that stuff on the outside, the kitchen and the platform, all that was an extension to the original hanok. And that sliding door, once upon a time, would have been the exterior door to the hanok room there. And there was a Chinese restaurant in the building that used to be here. So it was really easy to get Chinese delivery. So I ate a lot of jjajangmyeon back in the day. And this space here, this was a little super. It was owned by an elderly couple. And they had their room in the back. I mean, their actual living room. It was a small place, but they had most of the necessities. You know, the toilet paper, ramen. I didn't have a stove. I had a little single burner portable thing. Yeah, this is all completely different. So I guess that's still the old original building. It's just the exterior's been modified. But the buildings here on the left are all new. There used to be a video rental shop somewhere here, maybe here or here. I spent quite a bit of money there. And here's another change that has changed. This place had a German name not too long ago. but there used to be a little fruit and vegetable vendor in an old building here. Long gone. So right here, probably around where these steps are, this used to be a pedestrian gate, pedestrian entrance into Hannam Village, the US military apartments. I don't know if this strip of land was included in the sale of the property to 9-1 or if it was excluded from it. But for whatever reason, the 9-1 boundary goes there. And we now have this nice public pathway connecting this central area of Hannam-dong with Hannam-daero up here. In the past, you had to walk down the back streets over here. There's a little L-shaped street to get from one side to the other. That's the street over there. Itaewon Street here, this part of Hannam-dong was in a state of constant flux even while my wife and I were living here. And it's just continued to change in the years since we left. I remember when this was new and there was a cafe here. And in the building that was here, there was a good restaurant that opened while we lived here. I couldn't begin to tell you what used to be over here, where all this stuff is now. It's just changed so many times over the years. I know there was an Audi dealer in that building right there that now says Gate, and the Audi dealership still seemed new to me, but it was there quite a while. This is one of the few iconic buildings still remaining in Hannam-dong. It's the Cheil Building. It's a Samsung subsidiary. But interestingly, when I first came to Korea in the early 90s, it was a big pink building called the Viva Baekwajom, Viva Department Store. And that was really iconic. And this building right here is standing where my wife's office once stood. She worked at a little real estate agency there for quite a while. And I can't believe there's a North Face in Hannam-dong now. You've got the North Face women's store here. And I guess this is for men. It doesn't say it, but I guess that's implied. So my wife and I were living here on this street when this building went up. They were just finishing the construction when we moved in. And our apartment was right here, where this building is, right here. It was a 3-story villa, kind of an older villa, looked like a house. And we lived on the 3rd floor, and the owner owned the building that stood next door, which was right here. It was a big rectangular building. Not only did we have roof access to that building, it was the way you got into our apartment. Living on the 3rd floor, we had to cross a bridge onto the roof of that building and then go down the stairwell there. My wife really did up the roof there. We bought these lattice work wooden panels and put them along the railings of the roof. Of all the changes that have happened in Hannam-dong over the last 3 decades, it's the changes that have happened here in this part, the northeast corner of Hannam-dong, that I'm most disappointed in seeing. I lived here in this neighborhood for a few months with some friends in 1997, and we lived right here on the second floor of this house. Used to climb that metal staircase to get up and down. And this was always a quiet part of the city. Really quiet, chill neighborhood. But you can see now there's all these newer buildings, offices, there's cafes, there's shops, there's workshops. The gentrification has spread out here from the central part of Hannam-dong, it seems. And it looks nice. I mean, these buildings look good. They look better than many of the old villas that were here probably. But it's really killed the charm of this part of the neighborhood, the quietness and the stillness. That's what made living in this part of Hannam-dong nice. It was special. It was different. The rest of Hannam-dong, even central Hannam-dong before the gentrification, it was busy. People passed through there a lot. Cars passed through. It was noisy. But here, it was just quiet. My reason for making this video, isn't like, oh, boo-hoo, everything's changing. That's not what this is. I'm not sad. I'm not lamenting the changes, except maybe here in the northeast corner, like I said. It really is about saying goodbye to Hannam-dong. It's the combination of the new town project demolition going on, the removal of the pedestrian bridge. It really drove home the point that the Hannam-dong I knew 20, 25, 30 years ago is no more. It's gone. If you pulled somebody out of Hannam-dong in 1996 and plopped them down in Hannam-dong today, very little would be familiar. It's very different when the changes are happening around you. You know things are changing, but it's so gradual, you don't really notice the cumulative effects, even as more and more changes happen. And that's the realization I had when I noticed that pedestrian bridge was gone. That was a major change. And it just made me think about all of the other changes, big and small, that have happened since I've been here in Hannam-dong. And even things that I still think of as new are old. And the changes have changed and changed again. So yeah, I guess part of this is just me dealing with the passage of time. I lived in 5 different residences in Hannam-dong over the course of roughly 14 years. And of those 5 residences, only 2 of them are still standing. Well, 3 of them are still standing and 1 is soon to be demolished. So I guess this was just my farewell tour of Hannam-dong. Goodbye, Hannam-dong. It was nice knowing you.